The offensive grades continue, and today I focus on the tight end unit. Was 2024 an indication that the tight end group needed revamping? Do they have what it takes to bounce back in 2025 under the play calling leadership of Nick Caley and other offensive additions?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Y'all know what it is, Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Shout out to our everydayers from the Himalayas coming back to continue talking Texans with me, Texans football analyst and credential media member John Hickman. If this is your first time, thank you for stopping by. What I am talking about right now, we are giving pre-training camp grades. I already did the running back group, did the offensive line group. Some of you guys were not too happy with my grades and why I graded the offensive line unit that way. If you missed those episodes, go back and run it back on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Today's focus is all about the tight end. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Again, all about the tight end unit today. Is there room for improvement? That's going to be, is there a player out there the Houston Texans are either A, keeping their eye on currently, or when we get to that big cut down day where we'll see hundreds of players unfortunately lose their job because they're being cut from their team? Will some guys, surprise guys, become available, or is there a player in the dirty South the Texans should keep their eye on to monitor that situation? Also, trusting the process. Hey, if they don't go upgrade, if they keep the unit that they have right now, what does that look like? How can Nick Caley, Jared Lipinski, and the rest of the offensive coaches that have put together a great game plan to maximize the players on in that room? We're kicking off today's show just looking at the grades and why. And for me, my current grade for the tight end unit is a C minus. However, if Nick Caley and the play calling can maximize the potential of the players in that room, that grade could improve to a B minus. Throughout the show, I'll talk about how they can get to that point. It ain't all about the yards, guys, by the way, especially considering offensive line gonna need some help. Now, this room currently features Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, who signed a one-year extension, and has also been working out to prepare for training camp. Sophomore tight end rookie, not rookie, but Cade Stover, veteran Irv Smith, and seventh round rookie Luke Lachey. Okay, why a C minus? Well, let's look at Brevin Jordan in 2024. Suffered an ACL injury in week 2 of the 24 season, was placed on a season-ending injury reserve list. And keep in mind, again, December 5th, Jordan signed a one-year contract extension with the Houston Texans. His career stats, 532 yards, 5 TDs in the regular season. And I'll get back to why I think Jordan's health and involvement can boost this unit to a B minus. As I mentioned, now let's look at Cade Stover in his rookie year. 15 receptions, 133 yards, 1 touchdown. Once Brevin Jordan went down in week 2, the expectations for a young man who may have not been ready for those expectations kind of increased a little bit. They needed for him to be somewhat of a player and a playmaker for that offense last year. So with the injury to Brevin Jordan, that kind of sped up his process. He's still a work in progress. He is a raw tight end prospect, guys. He played tight linebacker in high school and running back. So tight end is fairly new to him. I do think another year in the NFL under his belt is a good thing for him. Stover is an underneath guy, has 7 games of an average depth of target, 8 yards and under. Of those 7, 4 were 6 yards and under. And something I thought I was going to see more of from Stover that I want to see moving forward, but that I didn't see in his rookie year, being as though he is a former linebacker. I thought I was going to see him make some of those tougher breaking of tackles type of plays. And I didn't see that from soft hands, but was kind of easy to go down in his rookie year. So hopefully we see more of him fighting for extra yards, especially his physique. He's a big guy. He's tough. Former linebacker. We got to see some of that linebacker-ish coming out of him when he's running after the catch, right? So those are the two players. The two players in. One might be on the bubble because, listen, we've seen Nick Caserio hand out 1-year extensions and allow players to come in and compete before cutting them in the past. Don't know if this is the case. I actually think Jordan is needed. Luke Lachey is a rookie, a 7th rounder, and you guys have heard me talk about him and his chances of making his roster while doing the rookie diary. I think that it will best serve both parties if he is reserved to the practice squad, unless he just completely kills it in camp in preseason. So now let's get to the leader of the bunch, which really, if the leader was a little bit better, we'll be looking at a different grade, honestly, right? But the leader plays a real role into why the grade is a C-, and that's Dalton Schultz. Giving you guys some numbers right here. 85 targets, 5 targets per game, which was 9th among qualifying tight ends. Now let's look at some of those numbers compared to the rest of the tight ends, starting tight ends in the NFL. Receptions, 15th, 532 yards, 16th, lowest since 2019, by the way. Touchdowns, 2, that was 21st. And so we're already looking at Dalton Schultz. Based on the numbers, he is average to below average based on 2024 in that year of production. Averages 10 yards per catch. That's bottom half of the league for tight ends. And here's where Schultz holds this offense back as a leader. Yaks per reception, yak yards per reception, just 4.1. That's 34th, below average after the catch production. And of course, Schultz's extreme lackluster performance and production as a blocker, PFF flag poor fundamentals, worst run blocking grade among starting tight ends, and a 33.3 pass blocking grade. That's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. And so from leadership on down, the room is full of potential. Now, when I look at how Bobby Slowick in 2024 went about or failed to go about maximizing what the players in that room does, he gets credit. He's gotten I held him accountable for that every time we talk about the tight end group. The room is full of potential, but that potential hasn't blossomed into a trustworthy unit that we can rely on to be reliable in its entirety for what the offense needs, let alone for that unit to be explosive for the offense. Now, question for Texan fans out there. Do you guys think that in a lot of ways the Texans view the tight end group like the offensive line? What do I mean by that, guys? Well, coaching. Can coaching change their issues from the previous season? Let's dive more into that question and what the Texans need from that unit to bounce back. More on Locked On. This is the perfect opportunity to let you guys in on the greatest kept secret. It's not even a secret anymore, but FanDuel, man, we got the NFL getting ready to kick off. Preseason games are around the corner, including the Hall of Fame, but they just make watching sports fun. Summer sports are in full swing. Shout out to the W. Shout out to baseball. And so whether you're into baseball under the lights, golf on the green, high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach, or you can get some sunburn at the beach. You can also still be getting in on the game because we got these little things called phones. We can take them anywhere. It's easy to use, fast to pay out. It makes every regular season game feel like a must-watch game. Whether you're placing the same game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're a part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, no problem. New customers can get If you bet $5, you will get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So just open up the FanDuel app today and visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Battle Red Nation, welcome back as we continue to talk Texas and continue to talk the tight end unit. This segment is about trusting the process. And this is where I need engagement from you guys. How much longer, before we even get to the conversation for real, how much longer can you trust the process? Because I think it's a little bit easier to trust what the process can be if there's somewhat of a certain freshness there. However, with the lead man being Dalton Schultz, and whether it was effort, whether it was lack of fighting for extra yards, whether it was, the lack of being a red zone threat, and as much as we'll hold Dalton Schultz accountable, the offense was a problem, right? And I'm going to be fair to Schultz, but since he is the lead man, can you really trust the process? And does that thought lead you to, did Houston neglect this unit? And if they didn't, what does the Texans need from this unit to bounce back in 2025? Did Houston neglect the unit? Well, this brings me back to, does the Texans view the tight end group how they view the offensive line unit? And that is, will coaching, especially having a better understanding and situational awareness, help this unit out for 17 games and a postseason berth? Can coaching get them where they need to go? Houston decided to roll with Nick Caley from 2017 to 2024. Caley coached tight ends. Okay. He's also the offensive coordinator now, but he has a deep understanding of how to get a unit that may not, and it's different because in New England, they utilize their tight ends a lot, but how to get a unit that may be underserved involved into the game plan. He understands that, coached it for 8 years. Okay, so that's one. In addition to that, Caley brought over from the Rams Jerry Shaplinski, who also has experience coaching tight ends. Okay. At the very least, between Caley, Coach Jerry, and tight ends coach Jake Moreland, can they communicate with each other with open minds how to help and determine situational decisions like personnel, down goals, right? How to get those guys really, truly involved in the red zone where the offensive, I'm not the offensive line, but the tight end unit was, very lackluster in 2024. And who will be the best to deploy on the field during those moments? So how can that C- jump up to a B-? I truly think the D'Amico guy is needed to stay healthy this year for this group to really become unlocked. And the D'Amico guy is Brevin Jordan, guys. D'Amico loves Brevin. Brevin loves D'Amico. When D'Amico first got here, I thought that was going to be the end of Brevin Jordan. But with Brevin, guys, it isn't about the yards at the end of the season, though that does matter, but not as much for Brevin. If you've been around Brevin, then you know two things. One, his energy is infectious. They missed that last year. Two, he'll do whatever is asked of him to stay on the field, and he'll do it at the highest level he can. With that said, a healthy Brevin Jordan is the Texans' best blocker in that room by far. It's not even close. I once saw Brevin Jordan handle Will Anderson Jr. at practice. So getting him on the field, how can him being around bump that from C- to a B-? Getting him on the field gives Houston the flexibility to have a trusted and more so a willing blocker in that room to give the offensive line adequate assistance when needed, while also allowing for Houston to use Schultz in the ways he was meant to be used. That's why you see two different, the contrast between 23 and 24. Brevin Jordan did a lot of the dirty work. Houston missed Jordan in the 2024 season. For that reason, they had to rely more on Schultz because Stover was not ready in some moments. The best dynamic for this unit is the dirty work Jordan that you're going to get out there doing those essential non-stat sheet things. And then, of course, when you least expect it, like Timmy Chan in 03, boom, here goes the bootleg man, especially in the red zone where that unit was very underwhelming. Brevin Jordan, with his speed, he outran some guys. He can outrun some guys with that foot speed. He can do those things, and because he can line up tight, he can line up wide, and in a slot. He can line up in the backfield. Boom, there's a bootleg for my H-Town Houstonians. Y'all know the bootleg man used to be a Timmy Chan. For every person, there's a store back in the day in 2003 where you had a bootleg man come out. Brevin Jordan is the bootleg man. Just like in 2003, that bootleg man has some good deals and he'll hook you up. That's what Brevin Jordan needs to be for this roster, for this unit. And that's what that unit needs of Brevin Jordan. And for Cade Stover, just some stick routes. Is he the guy that can fight for yards? Is he the fight for yards guy? We need to see more of that from him. Don't know. Soft hands, easy pickups to get him in the offense, more involved. Moving quickly is the way to go for him, especially because he's such a young prospect. So just nothing to make him think. Don't need to think a lot out there. Just get him involved in any ways you can. But all of that being said, I still think the Houston Texans can raise their floor before going into the season week 1. And if so, then who? Should Houston keep their tight end options open? We'll talk about that to close out today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. The Top 100 show is out right now. Some of y'all have a lot of discrepancies. Travis Hunter did make the Top 100 list. Now I'm not sure how that happened. The young man hadn't played a down. Maybe that is how the network views him. Maybe they view him extremely high. But he was like in the 60s. What was Travis Hunter? Travis was really high. Travis was, he at 67, guys. Without playing a snap, without playing a down, Travis Hunter came in at 67. Will Anderson, Defensive Rookie of the Year, came in at 66. Nico Collins came in at 61. Daniil Hunter came in at 99. So a lot of discrepancies there. For my audio listeners, I'm playing I have the actual graphic up on the screen right now. Does Travis Hunter at 67 make sense? Not at all. Not at all. So we talked about the grade and why the grade is a C-. I think that's fair. Also talked about trusting the process. And for Houston, it will be essentially what we talked about with Nick Caley and how he's going to have to get the most out of his offensive line. And that is working with the guys that they have in the room and finding out ways to get the best out of them. This is what Nick Caley had to say. I'm going to run it back one more time.
Well, it depends on the players we got, and that's not a cop-out. That's the reality of it. So it can evolve, be willing to change and do whatever we need to do that's necessary based on who we have and who we're playing. Whether that's, again, you want to get big in terms of multiple personnel or not, gap schemes or zone schemes, committing to more play action or not, that's going to really be dependent on, what your personnel dictates and who you have available. So again, that's the great part about this year is we get to do a lot of different things and really put a lot of guys in different positions to run certain routes, some of these guys have never done anything, or certain routes that we have, and they might be just exclusively outside receivers that we're working inside and vice versa. So it's a good opportunity just to see what these guys can do.
You talk about a man that has been viewed by many people in those NFL circles as very much Sean McVay-esque. Intelligent is how people describe Nick Caley. A lot of people around the NFL, I've talked to some people behind the scenes. They are very excited for him to get an opportunity, and they are excited for him to get an opportunity with the quarterback that he'll get that opportunity with. And I'm talking about C.J. Stroud, which is a great thing for both parties. And I am very excited to see how he takes his New England days his Rams days, put them together, and then create a version of that that will work for the Houston Texans that they could use and that will really the personnel is going to matter a lot. He mentioned that, like the personnel that they have. So how will he take his experience and get the most out of these guys? And how will he take that experience and get the most out of the tight end room? With that being said, is it a foregone thought that Houston is just going to roll with some of these guys that they already have and not going to address it? If they keep their options open, and here's just a little FYI, if Houston decides to move on from Dalton Schultz, because listen, they are inheriting Dalton Schultz. Nick Caley is inheriting Dalton Schultz. He could be a player that just may not fit what he wants to do, personality wise, personnel wise, attitude wise, effort wise. Like that may not be something that lines up with Nick Caley's thoughts and belief, and he may just say, you know what, can we look to move on from him and either work with the two young guys and Brevin Jordan and Cade Stover? Irv Smith is also a vet who's in this room. Luke Lachey was drafted, so maybe he has a say-so about that. But just an FYI, if Houston does decide to move on from Dalton Schultz, the 2025 dead cap right now would be $5 million. In 2026, it would be $11 million. The remaining portion rolled forward. This effectively splits the hit across 2 years, making it easier for the 2025 cap pressure. The tight ends in free agency right now, those options are not good. Of those options, maybe Houston likes Gerald Everett, who is available, but honestly, the only way to upgrade to me is use what you got to get what you want. That's right, man. Listen, the player club was good for a lot of things, but that little term right there, use what you got to get what you want. Well, what does the Houston Texans have? What they got? They got 2 2s. They got 2 4s. In 2026, talking about the draft picks. Right now, they got some cap space. Again, after that third preseason game, we'll see what I call, and I hate to call it this, we'll see the blackout day where guys will start to get cuts. NFL teams start to make their cuts. Players will either be looking for new homes or I'm not sure. I think it would make sense. And we've seen Nick Caserio be aggressive. I think it would make sense for Houston to, at the very least, flirt with the idea and the thought of Kyle Pitts. The dynamic between Pitts and Brevin Jordan, Pitts is that athletic tight end that you can really use to open up the passing game down the middle of the field. I think that he's gotten a bad rap because of the quarterback play, and then sometimes things just come to an end quicker than you think. So maybe a new home for him is what's needed. But you got 2 coaches that were brought over that has experience with dynamic tight ends. 2 of them. And even though, listen, he talks about using what you got, what they already have here. Some of these guys have only been accustomed to this. We're going to try some things out. Again, he mentioned personnel. I wonder if Nick Caley is wrecking his brain over this unit specifically, looking at the personnel that they have and wondering if it's enough or not. Because what they're going to ask of that tight end unit, guys, and this is why room for improvement is important, they're going to ask them to be so all in, all hands on deck that effort matters, attitude matters. And if you are, at the top of that unit like Dalton Schultz is, what they really need from you is going to matter because the other 2 or 3 guys in that room, and I'm wondering how many tight ends will Houston carry throughout the regular season, but the other guys in that room, they're going to be asked to do things specifically that will be tailored for them to help expand this offense, and blocking is one of them. So if Dalton Schultz is not there physically to create those down the seam pass, catching those big plays, if he's not there to fight for those extra yards, and I think we'll see more once we get the training camp. I know we will once we get the preseason, once they go up against Detroit, who Nick Caley wasn't here last year, but hey, y'all lost that game after scoring, getting 5 interceptions. That can't happen again, but I wasn't here. I want to see why the offense stunk. They brought me in to help fix it. Does any of that funk still linger here in Houston? And if so, maybe it's time to move on from them. And I could really see Nick Caserio, while they still have that money, they got a few $1 million that they can operate with. They have those 2 2s and the 2 4s. Is there something that could be packaged together to upgrade the tight end room? And why I'm not necessarily bringing this up for the offensive line unit is because it is hard mid-season or before training camp or during training camp to trade for a damn good offensive lineman unless that team is in complete rebuild. And a lot of times they like to keep those good to great offensive linemen on those bad teams because in a rebuild, 9 times out of 10, you're fighting for either a generational prospect like the Jags or a franchise quarterback, and you want that offensive lineman for that franchise quarterback. So a good team ain't giving up no good offensive lineman. But a good team may give up, or a decent team may give up an offensive piece that may just not fit their identity anymore or what they're trying to do, and that could very well end up being the Atlanta Falcons. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. If you're listening now, do me a favor, share with your friends, run those numbers back up on YouTube. We're getting into the thick of things now, guys. TikTok. The countdown is here. A few days away from training camp. And remember, the squad show is on Friday, 6 o'clock. Stan Norfleet, Michael Connor, Aisha Morrison. We holding it down, talking Texas, so be there for that. Follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texas fans across the nation, peace.